Academy Rorona rounded off the panel-themed Academy arc with what was potentially the strongest ability in the game, a skill 2 that generates a burst panel directly under the next ally on the timeline. But the hype was short-lived when it was revealed to have been hit with the long, unseen, and seldom justified balancing tool of 275 wait time, which last hamstrung Ellie in the game's early days. Since starting turn order is determined by skill 2 wait time, Rorona's delayed start pushes any Academy Burst setups back into round 1.5 or 2 at earliest. Further, the unusual timing also makes it difficult to align other units to receive the burst panel. Or at least, that's how the analysis goes in theory. Let's see how it plays out in practice. Our test battle is the Sophie rerun's EX2, one of the first fights that feels like it was balanced around the level 80 cap, leader skills, and max trait level gear. My impression is that the intended approach is a Lydie setup with force break from Heidi's Burst to cut through the high break values. We've tuned the turn order so that Heidi's skill 1 puts her after Rorona, who will generate the panel for her to burst. And right away you'll realize the main flaw with Rorona's game plan. There's already a burst panel in roughly the position we want, as there generally will be since the game is designed to be played even without her. We could always just adjust our sequence a bit so Heidi lands on the naturally occurring panel. This won't always be the case, but for now we've just traded the problem of sequencing around existing timeline panels for the problem of sequencing around Rorona's irregular timing. Here, Lydie's burst wouldn't contribute anything useful, so we just skip the default burst panel. Ryza debuffs, Lydie nukes, pray for crits. And done. Well, now that we know there's already a burst panel there, we can go one of two ways. We can either drop Rorona and just use the default burst panel, or we can figure out something else to do with the extra burst. Let's first try rolling back to a pre-Academy setup, swapping in Flock for Rorona and speed tuning to get Heidi onto the default burst panel. Flock's speed is super low to have her trail everyone in the first round, putting her in a position similar to where Rorona was. We've also flipped Lydie and Heidi's order, but otherwise everything works the same. Rorona's burst panel generating skill 2 doesn't have a heal attached, so Flock's buff with heal is appreciated here, especially with overall incoming damage climbing again in the latest content. Flock actually offers better buffs and passives compared to Rorona here, so we even end up with a higher score. But what about the other route? Can we make something work with the generated burst panel after using the default one for Heidi? The go-to support burst is Lightning Lydie's super buff and AoE all resist down, so let's try that. This version requires a lot more speed tuning to ensure that Heidi's skill 1 puts her before Rorona's first turn to catch the default burst panel. After that, Rorona generates the panel for Lydie, and Lydie bursts, buffing Logi with no other ally turns in between. Because the final burst panel that Logi uses is flanked by red panels, and there isn't enough space on the timeline to use our second round of items earlier, we're forced to carry a blue panel generator to clear the space after the burst. Even with Lydie's super buff, this version performs worse than just the old pre-Academy setup. A big part of this is that S-Rise's debuffs contribute a lot to the slash setup, but they clash with Lydie's burst. This is another general weakness of using burst panel generation for support bursts at the moment. Almost all bursts come attached with a damaging attack that ends up consuming debuffs, doing more harm than good. So for the time being, I'm not sure that the more complicated burst panel generation setups offer much over doing things the old, tried-and-true way, or Academy Auto-Wind. The rest is just the 3 setups. And there are some minor item changes, but the main thing of note is the speed tuning, which ends up dictating a lot of the accessory and memoria choices. Thanks for watching.